History loves to tell us about the great kings and emperors, the ones who forged empires and commanded vast armies. We see their faces carved in stone, their names written in the annals of time. They're the icons of power, the pharaohs of Egypt, the emperors of Rome, the god-kings of Mesopotamia. And we're taught that their authority was absolute. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the figures we remember as the ultimate power were just the face of the operation? What if, behind the gilded thrones and imperial decrees, a hidden hand was pulling the strings? Imagine if the true rulers of the ancient world were never crowned, never celebrated, and their names have been lost to all but the most dedicated seekers of truth. Let's journey into the shadows of the past. We're going to uncover the secret councils, mystical priesthoods, and shadowy groups that may have been the real, hidden rulers of the world's most powerful civilizations. It's time to question everything you thought you knew about the ancient world.
Pharaoh as a living god, divine authority animation, interpreting divine will, oracles, economic control visualization, land ownership map, political veto graphic, erasing Akhenaten's legacy animation, puppet master placing Tutankhamun on throne, Egyptian propaganda relief. There's no image of ancient authority more iconic than the Egyptian pharaoh, adorned with gold, revered as a living god. His word was law. But was he really the most powerful man in Egypt? Or was his divine authority a tool wielded by a far more influential and secretive group? For centuries, the real power in Egypt often lay not in the palace, but in the sprawling temple complexes, specifically with the priesthood of Amun-Ra, the king of the gods. These weren't just spiritual guides, they were custodians of knowledge, interpreters of divine will, and managers of immense wealth. By the time of the New Kingdom, the Amun priesthood had grown so wealthy and influential that its power could rival, and at times even surpass, that of the pharaoh himself. The priests owned vast amounts of land and controlled immense resources, giving them a stranglehold on the Egyptian economy. The pharaoh was the mediator between gods and men, but only the high priests could interpret the will of the gods. They controlled the sacred rituals, the calendars, and the oracles that dictated state policy. If a pharaoh wanted to wage war, build a monument, or even secure his own succession, he needed the blessing of the Amun priesthood. This gave them a powerful political veto. A pharaoh who displeased the priests might suddenly find the gods had turned against him. We see this power struggle explode during the reign of Akhenaten. He tried to shatter the priesthood's power by declaring a single god, the Aten, with himself as its sole prophet. He moved the capital and shut down the old temples. It was a direct assault on the hidden rulers. But institutions are often more stubborn than individuals. After Akhenaten's death, the priests of Amun methodically erased his legacy, restored the old gods, and placed a young boy on the throne who we know as Tutankhamun. The puppet masters had put their puppet back in place, proving that even a god-king was no match for the enduring power behind the throne. This dynamic of a hidden power structure wasn't limited to native Egyptians. For a time, Egypt was ruled by the Hyksos, a group of foreign leaders of West Asian or Semitic origin. Later Egyptian records painted them as brutal invaders who destroyed temples, but archaeology tells a more complex story. The Hyksos' rise to power was likely a mix of gradual immigration, strategic alliances, and military pressure, taking advantage of a period when Egypt's central authority was weak. They adopted Egyptian customs and titles, but their rule represented a network of foreign and local elites who had seized the levers of power. A chapter later, Pharaohs tried to scrub from history to restore the illusion of unbroken divine Egyptian rule.
Mesopotamia map animation. Sumerian king list scroll animation. Kingship descending from heaven graphic. King as a shepherd. Chaldean magi or Babylonian astrologers. Ancient star charts, zodiac/constellation animation. Interpreting omens, liver, stars, divine prophecy animation. Let's now travel east to the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the cradle of civilization. Here in ancient Mesopotamia, rulers weren't just kings, they were shepherds of their people, appointed by the gods. But who or what were these gods? And did the kings truly rule, or were they just intermediaries for a hidden authority? According to the Sumerian king list, an ancient cuneiform text, kingship descended from heaven. This list is a fascinating blend of myth, legend, and actual history. It chronicles verifiable rulers alongside mythological kings who were said to have reigned for impossibly long periods, tens of thousands of years. While the Sumerians likely didn't view these numbers as literal history, the list reveals a core belief. The king was merely a representative, a manager tasked with enforcing divine law on earth. This suggests a power structure where the visible king was subordinate, ruling under the mandate of a divine authority whose true motives were known only to a select few. As these civilizations evolved, this mystical authority took on new forms. In Babylon, a significant source of influence in the royal court came from a renowned class of scholars, astrologers, and magicians known as the Chaldean Magi. The Chaldeans were famous throughout the ancient world for their profound knowledge of astronomy and divination. They weren't just priests, they were the intellectual elite, the masters of science and secrets. Operating from within the royal courts, they interpreted omens, read the future in the stars, and advised kings on every major decision. Their knowledge was their power. By claiming to understand the movements of the heavens, they could effectively steer the affairs of men, guiding the kings of Babylon according to a cosmic plan that only they could decipher. Ancient writers even claimed they predicted the fates of kings, with some legends stating they warned Alexander the Great not to enter Babylon, predicting it would be fatal for him. The kings of Babylon, for all their military might, knew that their empires depended on the esoteric knowledge safeguarded by these men. They were the puppet masters, using the language of the gods and the stars to direct the destiny of one of the world's greatest civilizations.
These hidden structures of power, from the temples of Egypt to the ziggurats of Babylon, challenge our entire understanding of ancient history. We're peeling back the layers of propaganda and myth to reveal a more complex and fascinating truth. If you find these historical mysteries as compelling as we do, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. And let us know in the comments, which ancient civilization do you think had the most powerful hidden rulers?
Illusion versus reality. Shattering glass effect. Modern puppet strings on leaders. Shadow government concept. Montage of ancient and modern power symbols. Ends on a question mark animation. So, where does our journey into the shadows leave us? In Egypt, we found that the pharaoh's divine authority was often checked by the massive economic and political power of the priesthood of Amun-Ra, who could make or break kings. We saw how the official story of rulers like the Hyksos was manipulated to hide the more complex reality of their rise to power. In Mesopotamia, we discovered a system where kings were seen as deputies of divine beings, their reigns dictated from a celestial throne. This power was later interpreted by the Chaldean Magi an intellectual elite whose mastery of astrology and knowledge allowed them to steer the mighty Babylonian Empire from behind a veil of ritual and prophecy. The story we're often told of all-powerful emperors and god-kings is an illusion. It's a carefully crafted narrative designed to simplify power and legitimize authority. The truth, it seems, is far more intricate. History isn't just a story of the crowned heads we see on coins and statues. It's also the story of the quiet, patient, and often invisible forces that operated behind them. The priests, the councils, and the keepers of knowledge, they were the true architects of the ancient world. They understood that you don't need a crown to rule. You only need to control the king. And the question that leaves us with is, has anything really changed? Or are there still hidden hands pulling the strings of power today?